have so many school groups. As Yves said, part of the German curriculum is that German school kids have to come and see a concentration camp it's around about every 3 years they go. Part of the other thing is the sort of memory of what's taken place is because you'll see little signs, the statues of shame. You'll see a man with his head bowed, and it's a memory of what happened during that time. So that's why it's sometimes very difficult for us to get in, but he's going to see what he can do. Here is one of the barracks. It's one of the ones which is reconstructed for all the barracks that were here. Later on, I suggest that you might want to go down to where the gas chambers and the crematorium were, and you're going to see where it's marked out where all the other barracks were. They were literally rows and rows of barracks. Here was part of the parade ground. What would happen at the parade ground is every morning and every night, all of the prisoners were paraded here. They had to line up, form up, while they were counted. So usually at 6 o'clock in the morning, at 6:30 at night it would take place. And they would be counted, and they'd have to count, they'd stay here until everyone was accounted for. When that one guy escaped, they immediately shot 10 prisoners, just blanket, because they had somehow not told the guards that he was going to escape. There was 2 accounts particularly that were here where, because they couldn't account for all the prisoners, on the second parade, they just let them stand here until 11 a.m. the next morning. It was a snowy night as well. It's cold here now. You imagine what it's like in the middle of winter. You get snow here. It was a snowy night, and 9 people never walked out of there. There was also another night as well where it was a similar sort of thing took place, where they couldn't find somebody, they miscounted, and not everyone walked off the parade ground. So that was what it was like. Yeah, no clothes, very little to wear. They couldn't try and warm themselves. They couldn't move anywhere. They had to stay perfectly still. This barracks is quite a good reconstruction. It is literally a reconstruction of what it used to be like. When Dachau was first built, it was built to house a certain population. There was going to be, I think it was built to have 45 people per barracks, if you like. So 45 people per barracks. And then towards the end of the war, there were 300 per barracks. And you think of things like the washrooms and stuff like that they had to use. So when it started off, everyone would have their own bed, but then there were sort of 3 or 4 people to one bed. That's what it was like. You had to sleep literally with people between your legs. That was the only way you could sleep. They had very strict rules about when they gave you things like, they would give you 1 bar of soap a month. You're expected not to use it up in less than a month, and not more than a month, because if you'd used more than a month, if you still had your bar of soap at the end of that month, you were then not keeping clean. 300 people using a very small washroom designed for 45 people meant that not everyone in the time span could use that. And they would then go for literally, they would take anyone for punishment who hadn't used the washroom, hadn't cleaned themselves in any way. And punishments were anything from being hit, whipped, made to stand outside, to being killed, depending on what they chose. As Yves said, one of the biggest sort of, the worst situation was one if you're a Russian, or secondly if you're a convict. In other words, you committed a crime of some specific sort. And the crimes, they were then marked out. They were specifically prisoners that were marked out, and they really did have the worst time. They were looking for any excuse.
What do you mean marked out?
They'd have special markings on their clothing. And they were specifically marked out for any extra duties that had to be done. If there was anything they possibly did wrong, they would be the ones who suffered the worst. The other interesting thing about the whole, imagine, you're going to go in here in a minute, I'm going to send you off to have a look in. There was also a whole infrastructure within each building, because in the buildings you'd have what you call seniors. These were people who were your own blood, if you like, who were there to report on you. They would report directly to the camp officers, and they would report on anything you had done. So if you'd done anything wrong, they would say. If you like, they were the goody-goodies, or they were the ones who were trying to survive, their own life. And so consequently, not did you just have the Germans here, but you also had other prisoners who were watching you to see what you do, looking for excuses to get rid of you, to make these apartments a little bit smaller. So even your own flesh and blood were watching you.
The other prisoners know.
And the other prisoners knew who they were. They didn't do the same duties. They were the ones who were on roll call, so they would be counting. So they would have their own special duties, and it wasn't as hard for them, So it was a really tough life living in these camps, as I say. You can just imagine it. Have a walk through here, have a wander through. You can sort of wander through the camp and out here, and you'll get a feel for what it was like. And then imagine that there were 3 to 5 people to a bed towards the end, and imagine how cramped it was. So have a wander through, and we'll just meet you the other side here.
also prisoners. This is the administration building. It was in the cold place. How do you say that? Cold place? Appel place? Appel square? Cold area? The cold area where all the prisoners had to be 5 o'clock in the morning. It means that they had to wake up at 4 o'clock to clean, to wash themselves, to eat well, there was something to eat. A few and 1 hour to be ready to be on the cold area. You have to think that all these persons had to wash themselves together. You are going to see the bathroom, how it looks like, and the toilets also as well. And you have to think that everything has to be totally clean, you know. And it was a punishment already to be in the barrack behind, because you had to carry the food, you know, from the kitchen here to the barrack when it was totally weak. It was already a punishment to be located in such a barrack, and priests were located there. Behind this administration building, there is the so-called VIP prison, where the VIPs were located and had a little bit a better way of life. There is an exhibition in it nowadays, so I advise you to get in also. And what we are going to do now is to go through the museum, you know, and after you are going to have some free time. There's no way to get the movie today, because it's July. You can see that it's no way to reserve, it's no way to get a movie before 12 or 11:30 in English, because all these groups of students or pupils are going to get German version. It's no way in July. It's impossible. You can see the movie in German if you want. Yeah, it's possible. You can see the movie in German. At 10 o'clock there is a movie in German.
Zuletzt circa 400 Leute in einem Raum. 400. Das heißt auch, ihr müsst euch wirklich vor diesen Kneipen, in diesen Verhaufen.
Same thing, but it didn't work. I don't know, they never did it. But they used these rooms to put the bodies when they couldn't burn them anymore, because they are close to the crematoriums. You are going to see that if you want after, by yourself. There are also 3 memorials. There is a Jewish memorial, 4 memorials. A Jewish one, a Catholic one, a Protestant one, and Orthodox one. Yeah, that's it. What I wanted to say. So you saw everything. You saw the rooms. You imagine that in such a room had to sleep 400 persons inside of this room. The way is that the rules in the camps were really hard, you know. For example, everything had to be totally clean, you know. Sometimes on the whole area they had to stay 24 hours. It happened that one person missed. Yeah, it happens one time. I read that one person was missing and was in one barrack, couldn't wake up, you know, because the person was too weak and couldn't come to the cold area, and the prisoners had to stay 24 hours standing, and at the next day 30 of them were died because they were standing. Oh, it's crazy to see the conditions of life. Let's go to the museum. Labor makes free, you know. Famous and in a certain way ironic sentence. Labor makes free. it's going to be the next also entrance of the memorial. They are going to change everything. So we go through the museum now, and after, if you want to visit the VIP prison, it's behind. You have to go here and to the left, okay? And the movie takes place at the end of the museum, in the middle of this building, okay? Let's go through the museum.
It's strange because they remade this wall shot recently, and I think it's a complete, for example, there, and then you have so it's the same for each one actually, and the way it's done, because they were working they had only one artist to eat for the lunch, one hour included the hour to go back to work. Which means they couldn't, it wasn't possible.
So did they just have one hour to lunch
It was okay. They had to work from 6 to 12, and then from 1 to 7. And after they had to come back, and they had to be in bed at 8:30 or quarter to 1 to 9. Everything had to be dark. That was
Alter, das Rechtliche zuständig, dass in jedem Arbeitsgrupp genügend Leute drin sind. Wir können
Ich glaube, er spricht, glaube ich, gleich Englisch.
Scheiße.